Let's see here. It's like the first article to get into is article about Meta. So in the Smart Brief, which I'm not going to put on screen because it's in my email in my other browser, but it says, is Meta really killing DEI or evolving it? Meta has announced changes in its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that some media have reported as killing such programs. But DEI expert Doug Melville says the company's internal memo appears to shift the responsibilities around to ensure that DEI no longer gets the credit it is due. Yet, it ensures the core of what DEI initiatives built stays intact. Meta's new policies still pledge to hire people from a range of candidate pools, but not on protected characteristics, which Melville writes is still in the spirit of building a diverse workforce. And then, if I grab the actual article link here, Meta is ending DEI programs, replacing them with DEI programs. So just like Trump is trying to root this out in the federal sector, we have to stay vigilant in the private sector. Trump knows that they are merely changing the language. I've been called crazy for saying that this is what companies are doing for the past year. I have had other content creators and other people just ignore the fact that this is what I've been saying. So hell yeah, thank you, whoever is in Donald Trump's cabinet that watches me. What is in a name was famously spoken by Juliet in Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet. That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. With this idea in mind, today we got a glimpse into what the name DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, means today, and what new name it may go by tomorrow. Meta, one of the world's largest companies by market cap and brand value, announced on the company's workplace internal communications forum that management would share some changes we're making to our hiring, development, and procurement practices. The announcement continued, speaking in very clear terms about the name DEI. The term DEI has also become charged, in part because it is understood by some as a practice that suggests preferential treatment of some groups over others. That's not what it suggests, that is what it is. Yet when the announcement describes Meta's ambitions moving forward, I'd call their proclamation a DEI mission statement. At Meta, we have a principle of serving everyone. This can be achieved through cognitively diverse teams with differences in knowledge, skills, political views, backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences. Such teams are better at innovating, solving complex problems, and identifying new opportunities, which ultimately helps us deliver on our ambition to build products that serve everyone. Which lead me to ask, are these companies getting rid of DEI just to invest in DEI under another name? Yes, this is exactly what the B.R.I.G.E initiative is. This is what they've been pushing since 2022. This is what I've been talking about since I discovered it at the beginning of 2024. But Kirsche, they said we're winning. This is why I said it's dangerous for Robbie Starbuck to have as large of a platform as he does, and to continuously say that we're winning, and not only say that we're winning, but to have him claim victory over these wins, and to have reporters say that companies are getting rid of their DEI due to him. It is all subterfuge. It is all smoke and mirrors. There were no wins that Robbie was reporting. None of those companies got rid of DEI. He did not do anything because, as I've been reporting for over a year before he even started his campaign, these companies were already making these changes, which is why some of them didn't even get messages from him, and he still claimed victory over them changing their DEI policies. He was like, oh, they just got scared because they saw what we were doing with these other companies. And it's like, no, this is by design. This was their plan. I am merely a clown on the internet, but sometimes I speak the true. They're in the goddamn walls. On January 10th, the day social media rival TikTok was fighting for its life in front of the Supreme Court, on the day that California was in the middle of its worst fires in state history, and on what's traditionally the slowest news day of the week, Meta sent out its updated DEI announcement to employees via Meta's Vice President of Human Resources, Janelle Gale. The statement, which was leaked and shared online, wasn't long, and ironically, I only saw it on Instagram and my WhatsApp groups, both platforms owned by Meta. The headline, Axios exclusive, Meta kills DEI programs. Like clockwork, versions of the same headline hit media outlets en masse. Meta ends diversity programs, disbands diversity, and eliminates DEI programming. This fucking journalist, this fucking Doug Melville, you beautiful little baby. It took him a while, but he is now saying the exact same shit that I was. None of these articles were being truthful. The statement, which was leaked and shared online, wasn't long. I read that part. As someone who's experienced in this field, I found that Meta's announcement conveys less that the DEI programs are being eliminated, and more that they're simply being repositioned, reorganized internally, and updated under a different language. The Fox woman literally can't stop being right! And that's why they hate me, chat. In 2012, Meta, at the time known as Facebook, reached 1 billion monthly active users and went public on May 18th, raising 16 billion. It was growth time, and in 2013, they brought on their first and seemingly only chief diversity officer. Meta was sponsoring, supporting, evangelionizing, I can't pronounce that word, chat, and investing in diverse and underrepresented groups everywhere. How do you grow when you're already so large? Diversity. Today, Meta boasts approximately 4 billion monthly active users, nearly 50% of the world's total global population of 8 billion. How many of those are like alt or fake accounts, though? Over the past decade plus, their growth has allowed them into almost every country in the world. What fueled this, the diversity of its user base and content, the diversity of its product offerings, and the diversity of the company's colleagues. With that, the social media platform's bottom line, revenue, and stock exploded, as did its partners, namely 10 million advertisers looking to touch those markets. During those growth years, employees were focusing on DEI across the business and embedded within teams. You could see the visible diversity when you visited Facebook's offices, and it was due to the company's progressive family leave policies, mental health services, and accessibility accommodations across their campuses. You could bring your whole self to work. Through diverse voices in its marketing plans and creative output, which was popping up everywhere, usage on the platform grew as the company had seemingly sourced niche content from everyone around the world with the purpose to connect people and show them the diversity of the human experience. So this guy is noticing like I do, but he is on the opposite end. He's like, yeah, this is good. It needs to go farther. It needs to go underground. It's a moral imperative. I no longer love him, but I'm glad he's noticing. No matter how you look at it, diversity transformed its business, but where is the love? It's time to stand up and give DEI teams their credit. It's no secret outside forces are calling for the biggest companies to kill DEI and destroy the woke policies of the left. But as these folks scream fear and misinformation, companies are seemingly being forced, coerced, seduced, or strong-armed into agreeing to comply. Yes, because they were subverted in the first place. DEI is poison to a company. There is no business case for DEI. It makes things worse. And anyone who's been paying attention knows that you guys don't mean actual diversity when you use these terminologies. In doing so, they're making so many compromises that many of the changes being announced amount to internal reorganizations, policy adjustments, and linguistic semantics. And yes, Meta, via its founder, Mark Zuckerberg, is going on a PR tour. From Joe Rogan's podcast to video press conferences about changing the company's fact-checker policy and so forth. But this is all part of the process. Again, this is shit that I have been saying for over a year now. They're not actually changing things. They are embedding it further and changing terminology. This is what B.R.I.D.G.E instructs them to do. The more important question to me is why is Meta not giving credit to the power of diversity and to those on the DEI teams? It's simple, my dear useful idiot. You do not understand what their goals are. You see them as noble practitioners trying to help underrepresented groups, trying to make sure everyone is treated fairly. What you don't see is that they have been pushing Marxism, that they have been pushing racism under a guise of flowers and rainbows. What you lack the insight in knowing is that you are being used, you are being rused, and you are part of the cog that keeps their machine going. The company's recent statement was a missed opportunity not only to celebrate and thank their DEI teams, and all that they accomplished and contributed to the company's growth and transformation over the past decade, but to also connect the dots with all of the changes that the DEI teams have integrated across the company. The issue with DEI today is that the people doing the actual work don't control the public narrative. The DEI community is strong, but they can't speak freely anymore on panels, in the press, and many times, even internally. And this is like a useful idiot who hasn't quite caught up to what's happening yet. Sherm and Cheryl Dijja have both, on massive stages, said that the terminology doesn't matter. If you're committed to this work, you aren't doing the work for recognition. You're doing the work because it's both a moral imperative and it's a necessary change to culture. People who are doing this work, this is from like one of their meetings, people who are doing this work, who are doing it for recognition, don't understand the moral imperative that this work is. They see these people, right? They see the people doing DEI work for recognition as not people who are actually committed to the DEI work. They're like the left-wing version of calling people like coal-burning Jews, as it were. Meta's DEI evolution, which all leads me to Meta's statement. Below is a breakdown of Meta's statement, which touched on 5 changes it wanted to recognize. To me, the company is not eliminating much, but shifting the responsibilities around to ensure DEI no longer gets the credit it is due. Yet, they ensure the core of what DEI initiatives built stays intact. It's not that they are trying to remove the credit that they believe DEI is due. It's that they believe that the work and the end goals of changing culture are more important than the terminology. DEI doesn't need the credit. It doesn't need to be outwardly, publicly visible to continue doing the work. As long as you can still force these things, as long as you can still permeate your ideology, and as long as you're still on track to completely subverting and changing culture, that is what matters. And that is what useful idiots like this guy do not understand. They need those trigger words because they've been conditioned to respond to this stimuli. And when they can't respond to this stimuli, they don't know what to do and they don't know what to believe. We will no longer have a team focused on DEI. Maxine Williams is taking on a new role at Meta focused on accessibility and engagement. When I began my corporate career as a chief diversity officer, my CEO would say to me, the goal of a successful DEI program is to one day not need it anymore. Correct. And this is also what Cheryl Dijja has said in B.R.I.D.G.E. Your DEI program and your DEI teams are there to set up the initial embedding in your company. And the reason DEI wasn't working, and the reason there were a lot of clips of people supporting DEI saying it wasn't working, was because they said it was a siloed approach that didn't go far enough. Tim Pool trying to say Charlemagne was against DEI is one of the clips that comes to mind. Their goal is to remove these programs because they will have indoctrinated people, they will have embedded the values in their company so that they do not need a visible team anymore. The people on that team aren't going to be fired, they're just going to be reallocated to other positions. Perhaps this is where Meta is. Isn't that the goal? Embedding the role within the team isn't bad, it's progress. A similar integration happened in the 2000s with chief digital officers. Once a company became digital, CDOs were no longer needed, and they were rolled into other areas. Also, accessibility and engagement are 2 DEI tenets. Actually, it's kind of interesting that they mentioned the chief digital officers, because they've been co-opting a lot of terms for like tech employees and like terms that are used in like tech and banking to start referring to their DEI program, so people don't really notice that there's a difference from what the actual programs were. Sounds like a corrupt public servant. Yep. Accessibility and engagement are 2 DEI tenets. Engagement is vague and in many ways can be looked at as a synonym for inclusion or recruitment. Accessibility is a corporation's responsibility for those who have a disability and is covered under the DEI umbrella. To me, this is a parallel phrase. Instead of equity and inclusion training programs, we will build programs that focus on how to apply fair and consistent practices that mitigate biases for all, no matter your background. This is why Amazon in 2023 rolled out their Builders program. They, instead of having diversity officers or diversity acolytes, they have builders who promote DEI tenets wherever they're sent to work. This is semantics. Equity and training programs are intended to ensure fair and consistent practices that mitigate bias. In most cases, a company's insurance premiums will decrease if these trainings are given company-wide. True, they are given monetary incentives to push these practices. We are sunsetting our supplier diversity effort within our broader supplier strategy. This effort focused on sourcing from diverse-owned businesses. Going forward, we will focus our efforts on supporting small and medium-sized businesses that power much of our economy. Opportunities will continue to be available to all qualified suppliers, including those who are part of the Supplier Diversity Program. Supplier diversity programs are set up to diversify a supply chain, to better support, develop, and diversify vendors. Most diverse-owned businesses are also classified as small businesses. The actual number depends on what category your business falls under. But for perspective, if your business does under $40 million in annual revenue and has up to 1,500 employees, you're a small business. So Meta can reclassify diverse-owned businesses as small businesses, which are 99% of all businesses in the US, and remove the perception of any bias. I have talked about this before when they're saying that they're removing these supplier diversity programs, literally, finally echoing my sentiments in an actual news publication. And in addition to this, oh god, I think it was a college in Maine. I can't remember if it was a college or if it was a organization, but they were giving scholarships to minorities and LGBTQ people. And they were like, well, since it's illegal to discriminate, we're going to open up these minority and LGBTQ scholarships to white people and non-LGBT people. But do you think for a second they're going to be accepting any of those applicants that do not fit the biases that they wanted for them in the first place? But unless you can prove that they are purposefully excluding you, they are now loopholing around the discrimination law. We previously ended representation goals for women and ethnic minorities. Having goals can create the impression that decisions are being made based on race and gender. While this has never been our practice, we want to eliminate any impression of it. Meta had already eliminated this, so this is likely being stated for optics and to mitigate risk against actions or claims being made versus an actual substantive change. This isn't even a DEI thing. This is legal. This guy does not understand. On hiring, we will continue to source candidates from different backgrounds, but we will stop using the diverse slate approach. This practice has always been subject to public debate and is currently being challenged. We believe there are other ways to build an industry-leading workforce and leverage teams made up of world-class people from all types of backgrounds to build products that work for everyone. The diverse slate approach, which Facebook introduced in 2015, had its moment, as it's about interviewing more diverse candidates for roles. Truthfully, it's hard to execute this approach for technical and senior positions because candidate backgrounds are so unique. Harvard Business Review studied this extensively, and you can see why Meta did this for 10 years. In addition, the announcement said, "We build the best teams with the most talented people. This means sourcing people from a range of candidate pools, but never making hiring decisions based on protected characteristics. We will always evaluate people as individuals." The best teams with the most talented people, much like how the H-1B visas are only bringing over the best and brightest, am I right, ladies? DEI is not about hiring decisions based on race, it's about adding a different perspective or background to your team that isn't currently at the table. This at the table speak is also very indicative. Always these ideologues use that fill your cup, a seat at the table kind of language to help spark the best ideas among them. At the end of the announcement, the people principles were shared. They sounded very similar to DEI principles, so much so that if you changed the heading, I don't think anyone would bat an eye. Overall, much of the language used here is comparable to the language they use in their 2024 Responsible Business Practices report, which significantly covers their DEI efforts among other topics. Which again makes sense because, once again, B.R.I.D.G.E mentions that DEI is a responsible business practice. DEI is a business imperative. Maybe it's time to ask, what's in the name DEI? The whole release is a signal that the term DEI is bad, but the programs to eliminate bias, hire small businesses, hire the best people for the job, and diversify the company, all DEI tenets, are the best way forward. You see what he did there? He pointed out exactly how they're subverting language, especially in the small business category here. He pointed out that they're basically doing the exact same thing, and the diversity supplier program is the small business program. But now he is using the new subverted language on his own. So it's going to perpetuate that, oh yeah, these companies did remove DEI. See, they're not having supplier diversity programs. They're just hiring small businesses. And small businesses can be run by anyone. How is that divisive? How is that anything like DEI? This is how the subversion of language and the issues with communication start happening. Because all of these people run in lockstep at changing the language at the same time. Which had me reaching for Shakespeare's famous question, what's in a name? Specifically, what's in the name DEI? A name itself holds no real meaning or importance. The essence is what truly matters. The people who are so quick to take down DEI are growing their 401k saving accounts off the backs of what DEI is delivering. But to them, it's DEI by another name. Globalism. Oh, he just went like fully mask off there, didn't he? I am educated Shakespeare, am I right? It might be happening, but it's a good thing. The article, true and real.